Okay, hello and welcome to episode 25 of Hunter x Hunter. And yeah, it's once again been a couple days since I was last able to record. Stuff has just kept getting in the way recently. It's already getting quite late. It's already around like 7 or 8 o'clock, which is usually the time I'd stop recording under normal circumstances, so I'm going to have to go a little bit late again tonight. My brother is going to be coming back home tomorrow. He's been away for like a year. He's going to be coming back, which means it's going to be more difficult to find time to record because I don't want to be making too much noise. So, I don't know how that's going to go. I'm going to have to find time to record. But yeah, a bunch of stuff's going to be changing soon, so I'm just going to have to deal with all that stuff as it happens. But yeah, we're on episode 25. Last time, we met the Zoldyck, not entirely sure how to pronounce it still. The Zoldyck family. You think, we know there's 5 children, the mother and the dad, and there's a granddad, and I think they also mentioned a grandmother and a great-granddad, but I could be wrong about that. So we've met 4 of the children, I think. There was the chubby guy, the killer, obviously, the little girl, and Illumi, and that leaves 1 of the children unaccounted for so far. And then we've met the dad and the mum, obviously, and then the granddad. And if I am right, and it was a great-granddad and a grandmother, I can't quite remember, that means 3 family members unaccounted for. At least 1 family member is unaccounted for, at most 3. Depends on if I'm remembering correctly or not. But yeah, I wonder why those family members are unaccounted for, right? Because that episode was very much the introduction to Killua's family, right? That's what that episode was. So if they are leaving out certain family members, that means there has to be a reason why they're leaving out certain family members, right? Because if the point of that episode is to introduce the family and there's certain members they're leaving out of that introduction, there's probably a reason for that, right? So yeah, I wonder what that's all about. But yeah, I don't want to waste too much time. I'm already on limited time, so yeah, I'm gonna get straight into it. So let's go. Alright, so that was episode 25. So, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but it's a bit later in the day because after I finished recording that episode, I started feeling quite sick. I guess something I ate earlier on in the day must have disagreed with my stomach because my stomach was not happy with me after my meal today, and it started to not feel so great about midway through my post-episode discussion, and yeah, feeling quite sick got in the way of my discussion, so I decided I was just gonna leave it for a couple hours, let my stomach settle, and then I would return and finish the video. So that's what I'm doing now. It's been a couple hours since I finished watching the episode. I've had some time to mull it over in my head, and yeah, now that I'm not feeling like death, let's get into it. So we'll start with the first half of the episode, right? So all to do with the Butlers. I would say there is more to talk about in the second half, but we can't just ignore the first half also. It's really interesting that, like, because going into this arc you'd expect it to be about Killua's family, right? So they're gonna face the family, they're gonna go through all these trials and all this stuff, and they're gonna rescue Killua. But in reality, it's actually, this arc has been far more about, in terms of like Gon's side of it, right? We've obviously seen the family and learnt about them. In terms of the actual conflict with Gon and them, the conflict side of things, the arc has been more about the Butlers than the actual family, which I suppose just shows how ridiculously powerful the family themselves are. That at this point in the story, our characters aren't even like worthy of facing the family themselves. They have to deal with the Butlers for this little mini arc instead, which, yeah, that just really goes to show the difference in power between Killua's family and everyone else, pretty much. Particularly, we got a lot of Canary in the last couple episodes. I feel really bad for her this episode, man. Like, I wish she got to be Killua's friend. You know, like that would make a really nice little friendship, right? It would be very nice to see. But yeah, the thing is, like, she's not in a position where she can escape the rule of Killua's family because she's working for them, right? It's not like Gon where they can go off somewhere else and be friends over there while the mum can't get to them, right? Because she literally works for the family, so she doesn't have that freedom. She has to play by the family rules, which is very unfortunate, and I do feel quite bad for her. One thing I've noticed with this show so far, there's not many fights, and I like that. I might have mentioned this in one of my previous discussions. I'm not sure, but I'll mention it now again anyway. There are a lot of situations so far where I could see in other shows being sorted through violence, but in this show they find other ways to do it, which I really like. For example, in another show, in this episode, I could see the Butlers like, if you want to get Killua, you'll have to prove yourself to me in combat, that kind of thing. But no, they did like a funky little coin competition, right? Or, for example, the third trial in the exam arc, where they had to face the prisoners. Most of the anime, I imagine, would just have one-on-one fights, and that's it, just simple combat. But no, this show did it a lot more interestingly. They had one fight. In fact, no, they had one fight to begin with, in which the guy gave up immediately, so it wasn't even a fight. Then they had a candle competition, right? And then there was Kurapika, where that was actually a fight, but it only lasted for one punch, so again, doesn't really count. Then there was Leorio, his whole thing, where he had to first figure out that the guy wasn't unconscious using his like doctor skills, and then did the whole thing with the bets and all that. And then finally it came down to an actual fight, which again lasted like 2 seconds. So, and we have had actual fights in the show, definitely, but I also appreciate a lot that the show isn't just resorting to fights and combat to resolve every single issue. I really like that fact, and I can imagine some people having the exact opposite opinion, where they're like, we want to see more fights, this is boring. But that's not what I'm like, right? I quite enjoy the fact we've had very little combat so far, because not only does it allow for situations like in this episode to be far more creative, but it also means that when we eventually do get to proper fights, it's going to have a lot more impact, because there's been so much build up to proper fights, right? So I really like that. And a perfect example is this episode with the coins. That little game they played with the coin flipping, right? Where they had to guess. I thought it was just going to be a simple coin flip, right? I'm actually pretty good at coin flips. Oh, shit. So it's on heads. I don't know if you can tell. That's heads. Okay, I'm going to make it land on heads. There we go. It's on heads again. Right, now I'm going to make it land on tails. There we go. See, landed on tails. Coin tosses are actually pretty easy to do if you know how to do it. You can make it land on whatever side you want, which is really great if you want to settle a deal. Oh, how do we decide between our two things? We'll just flip a coin. Well, that's great for me, because I can always make a coin flip onto the side I wanted to flip onto. So at first I thought it was going to be a coin flip, but it wasn't. It was far more interesting than that. It was like this whole thing where you flip the coin and then grab them with his hands, and you had to guess which one was in. I wonder, I'm sure this is something that maybe fans of the show can answer. I don't know if there's any way to actually guess by looking. Like maybe the animators threw in a thing where like for 2 frames, if you slow it down, you can actually see which hand it goes into, or whether it's just completely, there's no way to tell and you just have to trust the characters. Because I sure as hell couldn't tell. There were some times where I thought maybe it went into the left or the right hand, but it really seemed like it was almost impossible to guess. And then they did that. At first they started with the thing where they were like, I'm going to guess right, he's going to guess left. One of them has to be right, so one of us will be right? But the problem is that they had no idea how long it was going to go on for. How many times would he flip? How many times was he going to throw it into the air and grab it? Like, is it going to be 3 rounds or 5 rounds or 20 rounds? It could last as long as they wanted it to. And of course, it's not like they could just go, hey, Killua, because they'd been told that Killua hadn't even arrived at the house yet. So it's not as though they could just try to force their way through to get to Killua, because even if they could force their way through, which they couldn't, as far as they were aware, Killua wasn't even in the house anymore, so it would be completely pointless to try and force their way through at that point. And then it's revealed at the end that the butler could use sleight of hand, right? I remember learning some sleight of hand coin tricks. I remember there was that one trick I tried to learn where because there's all the folds in how if you just like squeeze your hand a little bit, you can hold the coin in your palm, and that was really good for like, aha, like that kind of thing where it's like, I have no coins or whatever, because you can, or you suddenly switch which hand it is, and you think you're holding it in this hand, but then you suddenly swap it to this hand and they don't notice, and they still think it's this hand because you've got this hand like open, but you're actually holding it in this hand. You're just holding your hand in a position where it looks like you're not holding, and whatever. I'm going on a tangent about random crap right now, but yeah, he could use sleight of hand, and I'm not 100% sure what the implication was there, because the way I see it was there was two ways it could go. Either one, he was using the sleight of hand the entire time and was basically choosing whether or not to allow Gon to win. But Killua said at the end that he only used sleight of hand that last time because he doesn't like cheating. So I guess the idea is meant to be more, if he wanted to force Gon to lose, he could have by using sleight of hand, but he chose to give Gon a fair opportunity to actually, see which one it was. And it makes sense that it would be Gon who would do that, because at first I was thinking it would be Kurapika because, he's the smart one, but now that I think about it, seeing which coin the hand goes into, that's got nothing to do with intelligence, it's everything to do with perception, which is Gon's whole thing. He's always been the most perceptive one of the group, so that makes sense, right? The butler guy, what was his name again? Crap. I can never remember the names, damn it. The butler guy gave Gon a little warning about tricksters. He said, something along the lines of, there are many people out there, something who could try to trick you, that kind of thing. And he was using the sleight of hand as a point of reference, like, hey, I gave you a fair chance, but there are people out there who won't give you a fair chance, and you have to be prepared to realize that not everyone's going to be as nice as me, not everyone's going to give you a nice fair chance. There are people who are going to try and trick you and give you an unfair time. And that definitely seems like some foreshadowing right there, no doubt about it. And then we get into the second half of the episode. Firstly, they were on the trip. They were on a train or something? I can't even remember what they were on. They were riding in some kind of vehicle and talking to each other. And we got a little bit of information from everyone, really. We got information about the Phantom Troop, and we got basically information about the next big arc, presumably anyway, when Kurapika revealed that during the tournament, Hisoka had told him that he knows stuff about the Phantom Troop. And so Kurapika went and met with Hisoka outside of the building, and they talked, and he was like, hey, meet me in York New City, I think it was, York New City, on September 1st, which is 6 months from now. I'm not entirely sure. Did he tell... Okay, so was the information... So he said, I know information about the spiders, right? Was that information that they would be at the auction at September 1st? Or is he saying, meet me there at September 1st and then I will tell you the information? I think it's the latter, but I'm not entirely sure. If it is the latter, though, it's interesting that he's not going to tell him this information for another 6 months, because the Phantom Troop are going to be there, presumably, at the auction, or at least some of them will be. So, I wonder what benefit there is to hiding the information until then. Hisoka definitely seems like a schemer, right? It seems almost like he's stringing Kurapika along. Maybe he wants Kurapika to, reach the level and defeat the Phantom Troop, because if he does, that means he'll be strong enough to, be an actual challenge for Hisoka, maybe. And it's also possible that Hisoka is part of the Phantom Troop. That's another idea. That's also a possibility. I mean, we haven't seen his body, right? We don't know if he has any tattoos or anything like that. Because they do have the spider tattoos. And it's like Kurapika mentioned that Hisoka seems to know a lot about the Phantom Troop, right? Apparently he knows information that Kurapika would be interested in knowing, and he also knew that they would be in York New City, and he also knew to call them the spiders, which is something you don't do if you're just some outsider who knows nothing about them, right? So it seems that Hisoka does have some ties, or at least knowledge about the Phantom Troop that the average person wouldn't have. So it is possible he may be part of the Phantom Troop, but then that raises the question of what is Hisoka doing, right? Another piece of evidence that Kurapika brought up is the fact that Hisoka even knew that Kurapika cared about the Phantom Troop to begin with, right? Because it's not like Kurapika went around telling people his backstory. In fact, it was made a point in episode 1 that he deliberately avoided telling people his backstory, right? Because in episode 1 he was all like, oh, it's better to come up with a convenient lie, right? Like, he's not going around telling everyone his backstory. As far as we're aware, the only people he has told his backstory are the ship captain, Gon, and Leorio. I don't think he's even told Killua, unless Killua just happened to overhear it, right? So, there is no way Hisoka would know unless he just happened to overhear the conversation in Phase 1 somehow, or that would imply that he's a member of the Phantom Troop, or at least has ties to them, because that would be how he would know about the massacre of Krapika's village and the fact that Krapika was looking for the Phantom Troop. It's also possible he found out somehow due to Phase 4, potentially. No, not Phase 4, sorry, Phase 3, because Krapika did have that whole thing with the blue guy with the spider, right? So I guess that's possible, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. That's a bit of a stretch, really. I don't think that's possible. But yeah, so they're going to meet up in 6 months. So that's a long time frame, right? That's a long span of time. And that also gives us a time frame for Gon's improvements, because Gon says that he wants to be able to punch Hisoka in the face, and he doesn't want to acknowledge himself as a hunter until then, which makes sense, right? Because Gon is a very prideful and stubborn character we've seen. He is not a flawless goody two-shoes like Goku would have been in the anime. I've heard that in the manga, apparently Goku is a little bit less Superman-y, but in the anime, you know, he's not that kind of... Gon isn't that kind of like Superman, goody two-shoes, not a bad bones, but he's a little edgy when he wants to be. You know, he has that edgy side to him where he can be a bit prideful, he can be a bit stubborn. You know, he can be a little bit of a brass, not in like a bad way. Not like the fat Levi who's a real bratty. I mean like bratty in the sense that he can be very stubborn and really want to get his way. But that's not necessarily. I'm not necessarily meaning in a negative trait. But yeah, it makes sense though, right? Because the thing is, this is something I mentioned a couple episodes ago when I mentioned Hanzo and how Hanzo like gave him the victory. I mentioned about how like that would loom over Gon for a long time. The fact that he only became a hunter essentially because Hanzo let him become a hunter and gave up. But the more I've thought about that, in reality, Gon did win that fight. He was able to remain mentally strong despite the beating, while Hanzo was not, and he eventually gave up because he wasn't willing to go the full way. So Gon did win that fight fair and square. It was an unconventional way of winning a fight, but he did win the fight, right? But the thing that went down in Phase 3, which I sadly lost my reaction to, and that still annoys me to this day, that still looms over him, where it's like, the only reason I have my hunter badge, the only reason I've been allowed to go into Phase 4 and win and become a hunter, was because Hisoka gave me the badge back, right? I wasn't strong enough to defeat Hisoka and actually pass Phase 3, and if Hisoka hadn't just chosen to give me the badge, then Gon wouldn't have been able to progress to Phase 4, and so Gon feels like... I suppose he feels, because he's very prideful and stubborn, that if he isn't strong enough to become a hunter, because he wasn't strong enough to beat Hisoka, he wouldn't have passed and gotten his hunter... Was it like a hunter card? I forget what it's called now. He wouldn't have gotten like his hunter card unless Hisoka allowed him to pass, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't like being in Hisoka's debt, and so he wants to reach a level where he can beat Hisoka, because it's like, alright, if I can beat Hisoka now, that means that I am strong enough to have actually passed the hunter exam legitimately, and now I can actually call myself a hunter and use all the hunter benefits. So for him, beating Hisoka is like his real hunter exam, you know, like that's the actual final phase. But yeah, that also, like I mentioned earlier, it puts a time frame on Gon's training and how quickly Gon will get stronger, because I highly doubt we're going to go the next 50 episodes before Gon is able to use his hunting license, right? I think it's fair to say that when we go to York New in like the next big arc, which I don't know how many episodes that'll be, that might be 5 episodes from now, 10 episodes, I'm not entirely sure when that'll be, but it'll probably be the next major arc, I imagine. That will be the arc in which Gon probably fulfills his promise of being able to punch Hisoka, right? That would make sense. So that gives us a time frame for Gon's improvement, which is convenient because Killua drew that little line, didn't he? He showed us like, that was a funny scene where he drew Hisoka and Hanzo up there, and then Gon all the way over there. And that gives us a mental time frame of, okay, within these 6 months, Gon needs to close the gap like this much. And he's not going to become stronger than Hisoka, right? would be extremely shocked if within 6 months Gon was somehow able to become stronger than Hisoka. Like, that's not going to happen. Let's put that off the table because that's not going to happen. But if he's just able to close the gap enough, I think that's reasonable. I think that's doable. Especially since he has Killua, right? Killua's this fucking assassin prodigy, right? He's really good. So if there's anyone who could help train him, it's him. So I think it's reasonable that within those 6 months he could close that gap. Maybe... could he get to around Killua's level in 6 months? I don't know about that. I feel like even after 6 months, Killua's still going to be way ahead of him. But yeah, point is that because if we combine the time frame we've been given of 6 months with the visual that Killua gave us with the line, that gives us kind of like a mental image of how much Killua is going to improve roughly over the next 6 months, right? Speaking of which, that line, Killua, Hanzo is really good. Like, I think I mentioned before that I was curious how, like, a fight between Hanzo and Hisoka would go. But, like, Killua ranked Hanzo as right beneath Hisoka, which, like, damn, he's really good. He is really, really good. I want to see a fight between those two now. With how highly Killua ranked Hanzo. And it's interesting that Killua ranked himself below both of them, because this is something that I wouldn't have been able to come up with and realise if I'd done my discussion straight afterwards. But because I've had a couple hours to kind of think it over, I remembered back in episode 20, I think it was, where Illumi was like, you've been trained not to face opponents that you know are stronger than you. So with that in mind, it makes sense that Killua wouldn't be the arrogant type where he thinks he's better than everyone, because he's been trained to not target people he knows he can't beat. So of course he's going to be able to understand, okay, this guy is stronger than me. I'm not arrogant enough to think otherwise. I'm not going to tackle him. So Killua is actually a pretty good person to gauge people's strength, because he is very powerful himself, and he is reasonable enough and not arrogant to the point where he's unwilling to recognize people are stronger than him. Like, no, he knows certain people are stronger than him, and he knows people are weaker than him, and he can create a pretty good, like, range of strongest to weakest. He's actually a pretty good character to do this. And so now we move on to presumably the next mini arc. I'm going to assume this is a little mini arc. It seems kind of like a segue arc, you know, where it's like we have the next big arc, this York New arc, or maybe it's going to be a Phantom Troop arc. I don't know what it would be called yet. That's going to be like the next big arc, and then we have this mini arc coming up that's going to come in between. That's about this, what was it, Heaven Arena, I think? It sounds kind of like a tournament type situation, but we'll have to see what exactly is going on there. So we have Gon and Killua, they're going to go into there. And then we have Leorio and Kurapika, they're going to go off and do their own things. Kurapika's going to take work as a hunter, I think, so he can raise some money for the auction, which makes sense. And Leorio's going to... I don't think he was going to become a doctor. I think he's still learning. I think he was... I can't remember exactly what he said. He said he was going to go and use his hunter thingy to, like, become... I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something to do with, like, working towards becoming a doctor. I remember that at least. At first I was like, what, they're leaving? Whoa. But, like, no, it makes sense, right? It makes sense because, think about it, right? You want to become a doctor, right? You have a goal of becoming a doctor. You're 19 years old. You've lived your entire life. You go to this training place, and while you're there, you meet 3 cool people. You know, yeah, these guys are cool. You spend a couple days there. You become friendly with them. All right, the 3 or 4 days are over. All right then, I'm gonna go back home. You know, like, you know, you met these people, they're cool, but you're not gonna spend the next 6 months with them, are you? So at first I was like, wait a minute, they're going off on their own, but these are like the anime, this is like the main characters, they can't split up. But now that I've had time to think about it, it actually does make sense if you use real life logic. You spend your entire life training to become a doctor, and then you meet this group of people who you're friendly with for like a week. Yeah, that's cool and all, but you're not going to spend the 6 months with them just because you were friendly with them for a week. You know what I mean? It was actually longer than a week because they did the Hunter exam, which was like on its own was like a good few days. And then they did the situation with rescuing Killua, and that was probably a couple of weeks if I were to take a guess. So that, like, he spent maybe close to a month with them. So he's pretty close with them. But still, Matt, right? My point stands where it's like, he's friendly with them, but that doesn't mean he has to spend his entire fucking life with them, right? It makes sense he'd go off and do his own thing. And the same applies to Kurapika, of course. But yeah, it does make sense. And then you've got this Heaven Arena thing. So Gon and Killua are going to train in this place. it makes me wonder how strong the competition are going to be. Because Killua, I feel like Killua isn't going to have much trouble. But Gon is still fairly low level. Because I say that because there's one quote which really stands out in my mind, which is after I watch episodes, I tend to go back and like watch reactions to those episodes to kind of see what other people think and kind of, you know, gather more information and more viewpoints to help inform my own. And I watched, I think it was the Normies reactions to like episode 22 or something, and they said, one of them said, Gon is pretty high level for a hunter, isn't he? Like they were saying that Gon is like really strong for a hunter, and in my mind I was like, what? What do you mean? It's like we've been given no evidence that Gon is that powerful. Like when you actually think about it, what has Gon done? Like, oh shit. Like seriously, what has I don't understand other than him being the main protagonist. I don't know what Gon has actually done that would warrant someone saying like, oh yeah, he's high level for a hunter. And this isn't meant to like shit on the normies or anything. They're cool. I watch their reactions. I like them. But it's just a quote that stands out in my mind of like, why though? Like, what has he actually done? Like, ignoring the fact he's a protagonist. Okay, he did the ship right here. That's cool. He was able to track down. He was able to keep track of the fucking yellow monster guys in episode 2. He didn't fight them though. He didn't actually fight those guys. He just kept track of them. Like there wasn't actually a combat. We don't know how strong they were related to him. Who would beat who, right? Like that didn't happen. There was no fight there. So, and then he made it to the tournament. Phase 1, he ran for a bit and got his ass kicked by Hizuka. And in Phase 2, he beat some pigs, but so did literally everyone else in the entire exam. They also beat pigs, so that's not really anything special. And in Phase 3, he didn't have a fight. All he did was hold a candle and blow out the other guy's candle. And then he came up with the idea to break through the wall. Again, nothing in regards to him being strong. And in Phase 4, he got his ass beaten by Hanzo, right? It wasn't even a close fight. He got destroyed. If it was an actual fight, he would have lost in one punch. So it's like, yeah, Gon is the main character, which I suppose just because of shonen logic would make us think he's really strong. But when the normies said that line of he's high level for a hunter, it's like it clicked in my mind of, wait a minute, no he's not. Like they made me realize that we haven't actually seen Gon really do anything that's worth of note. Like he's definitely strong. I'm not saying he's weak. He's definitely a lot more powerful than the average person. But I would say by hunter standards, he might actually be fairly weak still. You know, like is he even stronger than the guy that Canary beat last episode? You know, that hunter guy with the dual swords. I don't know. I'm inclined to say no. The guy with the dual swords might actually be stronger than him, right? So I think Gon is actually pretty weak by hunter standards at this point, if I'm honest. Like, we haven't actually seen many displays of power from him. I mean, he did punch that brick wall a couple episodes ago. That was really strong. He's definitely a lot stronger than the average person. No doubt about that. He is definitely high level by human standards. Like, I've talked about this before, right? Where to even make it that far in the hunter exam, you need to be top 0.001% of humanity. So he is definitely incredible. He is top percent of the human race. No doubt about that. He is amazing. But by hunter standards, it seems like he's actually still on the weaker side of things overall. Which makes you wonder where everyone else ranks. Like, where does Kurapika and Leorio and Killua rank? After watching the last couple episodes, someone who I talk to after I watch episodes, I tend to go and chat to this person about the episodes because they've already seen the show, so they tend to ask me, oh, how did you find the episode? They let me know that apparently in the manga, Gon and Kurapika opened one door while Leorio opened two, which implies that Leorio is actually stronger physically than Gon and Kurapika, right? Which is very interesting because we haven't really seen anything from Leorio, and it makes me wonder, is he stronger than Gon? And that reminds me of a couple episodes ago, episode 21, where what's his name? Netero, I think, where Netero said that Leorio was physically more powerful than the martial arts master. And we don't really know how powerful the martial arts master is in relation to Hanzo, for example, but we can assume he's probably pretty strong, right? He made it this far. So if we say that Gon is like low-level hunter, and maybe martial arts master was like mid-tier, then maybe Leorio could be a decent bit stronger than Gon potentially, and Krapika maybe too. And it makes me wonder, Gon, like maybe I'm just being mean to Gon for no reason, but he could be the weakest of our little group for all I know. Like, we haven't really seen him do anything. We've seen Krapika beat that one guy super easily. We've seen Killua, obviously. And even though I didn't see it personally, I have been informed that in the manga, Leorio did some pretty good like feats of strength that we didn't get to see in the anime. So it seems as though Gon is the only one who, unless I'm forgetting anything, he hasn't really shown us anything that would make him seem like super strong by hunter standards. Again, by regular human standards, god tier, but I'm talking hunter standards here. But yeah, I've talked a lot. I've talked for about half an hour now, I think. I think that more than covers everything I needed to talk about in regards to this episode. I'm very happy that I was able to re-record this because my original discussion did not go well because I was feeling so sick. But yeah, I think I'll end it here, and I'll check out the next episode tomorrow. I was only able to watch one episode today, which is annoying. Hopefully I can watch more tomorrow. But yeah, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, it's all good. Subscribe if you want to know when I upload new content. And share the video if you want to help my channel grow. That'll be super useful. I will be very thankful if you do. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episodes, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. So, see ya.